Audicratic Audio, where creatives break down process, discipline, and long-term craft. I'm Ab the Audicrat. Today's guest, Rhythm J. What's poppin', everybody? I am Ab the Audicrat, and you're watching Audicratic Audio. This is the very first episode. Really happy to be here. My first guest is someone I've known for a very long time. Really good guy. Long list of credits in the industry. He's a producer, engineer. He's an entrepreneur, owns business that we'll get into later in the pod. Great to have him on, and I couldn't think of a better first guest. So without any further ado, everybody welcome Rhythm J.
Yo, thank you for having me so much. Ab the Audicrat, the one
What's
and
good,
only,
man?
Appreciate
What's
you
good?
having me on.
Of course.
Hey man, let's get it.
Let's get it. Yo, I just want to go over really quick some of your credits, because you've been doing this for a long time. You have a ton of credits with Sync. You also have some pretty interesting features on albums and mixtapes. But just to run down a few so that people know what you're about, you know what I'm saying? A couple artists you've worked with: Jelly Roll, My Son, Sky Zoo. A couple brands you've worked with: Heineken, Canon, Honda. TV shows that you've had syncs on: The Voice, The Daily Show, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, The Bachelor, Rick and Morty, Adult Swim. There's too many. I have to stop right here. Maybe we'll get into a little more later, but it's really impressive, man. I've been following you forever, and you've always been really on top of your game, especially in the professional sense, always been deep in the business, and I always appreciate that about you. So it's going to be interesting to pick apart your brain a little bit, even though I know a lot of it already. But yeah, let's just get started with, back in the day, like when, even real young, like when did you realize that you were, not only into music, but you might be wanting to produce music and maybe enter the industry someday and look at it more as just a fan? Was there ever a moment back then that just kind of happened, or did it happen over the course of time?
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, you know what? When I thought about it, when I was growing up in school, uh, like music was the only thing, right? Because when you go to school, you have all your subjects. You got your math, your science, reading, and all that. And like a lot of that was cool, but like a lot of it, I didn't have a passion for it. It didn't really interest me much. The only thing that really interested me just in those days, outside of like playing ball, was playing drums. That's one of the reasons why I'm called Rhythm J's. I was like
Right. Yeah.
learned on snare drum, and then eventually the drum set, played in a bunch of bands, and then came the age old question: oh, what are you going to go to school for? Like, what are you gonna do? Right, the classic: what are you gonna do when you grow up? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't kind of don't want to do that, so I'm just gonna stick with music because that's the only thing I had the most fun doing. And so at first, I thought to myself, oh, I just want to be like the guy in like the back of a club or a venue of like working for a record label, the guy in the shiny suit signing,
Right.
like saying sign right here, signing bands, MCs, whoever, what have you. The era I came up into, like, I was a big time just music consumer before I was even interested in the industry. I was blessed enough to just grow up in an area, out of a town called Ossining, New York. It's like a little north of Yonkers, a little north of the
Right.
Bronx. So just consuming music in the era that I came up in, and just to paint a picture of what that era was. This is when DMX first came out, Jadakiss, Lox, SP, and all them. Jay-Z was, like on top of the game. This is during the Nas, Takeover Ether beef, at its peak. Those guys were at their height. 50 Cent wasn't even out yet, right? This is like, I'm talking
Yeah.
about like the early days. This is pre 50 Cent, pre Drake, right? Like I was talking to a friend the other week. I texted him. I was like, yo, if us in our era, during like the Rockefeller days and all that, if someone came up to us and said, yo, a kid from Toronto, Canada is gonna sing and rap and take over the whole game, we would have laughed in your face.
Right.
Like,
Oh yeah.
that's where we came from. We were damn near at the epicenter of when the whole Rough Rider movement started, where, you seen people with remember like the FUBU crossover Rough Rider jerseys, right?
Yeah.
Number 99, right? So like
You were close to Yonkers, I'm assuming, where DMX is from, right? So
very, very
you're
close.
right
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like very close to Yonkers. So we weren't at the exact epicenter, but when you think of it in comparison of the whole world, right? Because Rough Rider and all that stuff like became a worldwide phenomenon.
It was so big back
Right.
then. Like, it was
So
just everywhere.
in proximity to the world and the country, we were pretty close to like the ground zero of all that shit. And of course, for me, prior to that, like prior to like all the dudes from Yonkers coming out, I always thought like rap was just like an NYC LA thing. I never thought like, yo, someone from Westchester County's, doing their thing. right? I mean, yes, you had like, like I think Pete Rock is like from Mount Vernon or whatever, but like, at that age, like I'm talking, I was like 13, 14 years old. I'm not gonna know that shit, right? So
Right,
it
yeah.
was fun though. It was and that was the first time that we noticed production, right? Where we started noticing, right? So like, Rough Riders, Swizz Beats, right? That was like one of the first producer names I recognized, outside of Dr. Dre, obviously. Um,
Yeah, it's true. I mean, when they were big, I mean, he was a name that you would hear in a way where you probably wouldn't hear about the producers too much before that.
yeah,
I mean, you would, but to your point, not as much.
yeah, because
So he was in that first batch of people that got big for being a
yeah,
producer. Outside of like the main, Primo, Pete Rock, all them,
yeah,
he kind of
exactly.
came right after that, really.
I
Like,
mean, yeah, because when you're like at that age, you're not really checking like, oh, who produced this album, who produced this song. You're just focused on who the artist is, right? We're really picking apart bars where we rewind. But people don't do this anymore. You used to actually rewind records to hear the lyrics back again. Like, oh, what do you say? Yo, go back, check that out. Like people don't do that anymore. It's like, oh, I just listen for vibe. Fuck the lyrics. Like it would never be fuck the lyrics, right? It was without going straight lyrical miracle. Like we would enjoy a punchline, right? We would enjoy the bars to a point where like it was as important as the instrumental. And you know, like aside from RZA, right? That was another one where like he was an artist to himself. So like he was a recognizable name. You found out later, oh, he did the beats and all this too. Like, when you're listening to hip hop for the first time and like just learning the landscape, right? Like there was one point where, when you, like a young kid doesn't know RZA did beats until you learn it, right? So
and then so you have the album, you wouldn't really have
yeah,
known in a way unless you have like, a magazine or something. Like
yeah,
there's no
right.
internet.
We
There's no
quickly
internet the way that we have it, so
yeah.
you wouldn't know.
For sure, and we quickly learned the names, the ones that were like the producer artist crossover people like Dre, like RZA, right? Like you learn those names, and Swiss Beats is another one, Timberland, another one, right?
Yep.
Like all these guys are like some of the first producers that I learned about, and then as I got older, learned about the premieres, the Pete Rocks, all the New York greats, all the Mount Rushmores, that everyone puts on their lists. Yeah, man, I think just I was fortunate enough to just be in a place where I could have grew up in Kansas and listened to like the generic vanilla shit on radio out there, but I was blessed to live where I lived and coming up on the genre that we know and love, and I don't take that for granted.
Yeah, I think the same too, at least from where I grew up in Albany. I mean, it's not New York, but it is the capital where, a lot of New York kind of echoes up to Albany, at least for music culture. So I definitely get that. And you said back then you were playing drums,
Yep.
which makes a lot of sense with how your beats are. You have very, so many like fills, and it's the drum programming is always it makes total sense that you play drums. I don't think I knew that up until you told me that. So interesting fact that you started that way. When did you actually start getting into production? And did you start with hardware? Did you go right into software? Like when was that leap made?
Got you. You know what? And that was another thing that like the timing couldn't have been better in a way where it's when digital really started to be a thing, right? So, leaving high school, going into college, that's when, the topic of discussion, right? Because I was a music industry major at SUNY Oneonta, as you know, our alma mater. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. Uh,
I think you are, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We're former alum, both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
we crossed over a couple years in the I think I'm like a year or two uh, prior to you when I went over
Yep.
there.
What year did you start? I was there fall of '03.
2002. So yeah,
Actually, yeah,
we're
you're right,
year
yeah.
apart. Now we just aged ourselves. Ah, there we go.
Yeah, I know,
So
yeah.
when I was in there, like Napster was a thing, right? People were like, what was the thing everyone was using? Like LimeWire, Morphe.
Dude, I did a presentation on LimeWire, that's funny, in one of my classes.
That's
Yep,
crazy.
I
Yeah.
remember that, yeah.
Yeah. So everyone, this is when everyone was like, it was the Wild West of downloading,
Yeah, it was crazy.
pre-streaming, pre-social media. Facebook wasn't out, YouTube wasn't out. Not to sound like an old man, but so I say all that to say, so like the DAWs were, just it was weird to have a 100% digital record at that time where it was
Right.
less common, where records were still being done in the studio on analog tape and all that. But I feel like when I arrived and started learning the whole process, it was digital by then. And so I started out on Fruity Loops 4, and
Yeah, I think I started off on 3.
yeah, I mean, I'm on Logic now. Like I've used Pro Tools crazy, and I really like got a lot better at mixing because of Pro Tools. Logic, you're a little more creative, in my opinion.
Right.
Reason I was using. So just I learned a little bit from everything. getting into it, but it was mainly software. I mean, the hardware I used was honestly just like live instruments, like actual drum kits, and bringing in musicians playing guitars, and whatever hardware was in the studios that I was at.
And speaking of college, man, I wanted to touch on this quick, but I always thought it was amazing how you organized King of the Mic, the
Yes.
rap battle at Oneana. We did it for I think 3 years. I think you said one of the years after you left that was still it still happened, but you weren't there. I don't think you were there the fourth King of the
Yeah, I
Mic.
came back to judge that one.
To judge, yes, that's what it was. Yeah.
And to paint the picture of that situation, for those that don't know that are listening, I mean, where Oneonta is, SUNY system, spot where it's like right in the smack middle of the state, probably what, 3, 4 hours from NYC. Long drive out there. You're passing a lot of farmland, broken down barns on the way, and then civilization arrives once again. It was a dope thing to do because it was kind of like the identifying moment of like who's hip hop on this campus. Because prior to that event that we organized, it was a rap battle, pretty much, right? Tournament style, March Madness type thing. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but we managed to pull it off and make it happen. But prior to that, it was a lot of punk rock, a lot of emo shows, a lot of jam band.
Yeah, hip hop just was not a thing. I mean, again, when I got there, I guess you did this, so I wouldn't have really known otherwise, but outside of that, it really wasn't.
Right, yeah, at least for that full year and a half that I was there before we put on the show, there was really nothing hip hop related, except for like, some people recording some things in the studios or someone freestyling at the bus stop, where the bars were, where, someone was drunk off their ass and was just like spitting a 16 and we're like, "Oh shit." Like, but outside of that, there was never any hip hop shows. There was nothing like that. So like you had these jam bands where like, dudes would play for like, one song for an hour straight and they would have like bare feet in the middle of the bar. And it's like, what is this shit, man? It was just weird. It was like all that super hippie shit, which it's cool. I respect it. Wasn't my scene. Even I played in a few bands out there, and I know we spoke off camera about this before, but like I remember just being at the drum set, like I would really just would love to just do a cover of like a Roots song or something, and obviously everyone else in the band wasn't feeling that, but I was. I wanted to do that, so that event was really cool, just with people. Just having just a battle was dope because we definitely violated like what's it like the maximum capacity rule when we had everybody come in when we.
There was a lot of people, man. The first one was, I mean, really, all of them had a lot of people, but the first one too was just that was special. That
That
was.
was really dope. That was like a moment in time for me where it's like, okay, hip hop does exist on this campus. It's not just me and a handful of people. It's a movement out here, and it was refreshing to see. Uh,
And you led it, man. I mean, you led it. There was really nobody else that did anything that big that many times. And I think a lot of people really respected you for that, man. Like, cause that just nobody else really did that and did anything really close to that in the hip hop sense. I mean, we all kind of did shows here and there, but nothing like that. So
and also just to talk on this too is you got to remember where hip hop was at the time, where in the whole of America, like the rest of America, I remember going to like orientation and one of the professors in a room of like 200 kids mentioned, "Oh, 50 Cent and his G Unit." And everyone started laughing. I'm like, why are people laughing? Like, I fuck with 50 Cent. Like that, Get Rich was one of the biggest albums.
right. Oh yeah, it's huge.
All right. I mean, it didn't go diamond yet,
2003, it was huge. Yeah, it was
well on
huge.
its way, but it's like, why are these kids laughing about 50 Cent? I didn't understand. Right. So like there was not like there wasn't like a full mainstream respect for hip hop as it is now.
Oh, even up to that point, you're right. I mean, really, that was right around that time was when it changed for sure. Even the 90s, for as big as it wasn't as big. It wasn't as mainstream
It
for
was like
sure.
mainstream. Yeah. I mean, it was big
Right.
in the hip
It
hop.
was big, but not mainstream like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, in the hip hop community, where now you see all this hip hop in commercials, and like it's funny because I have 2 kids, so when I was seeing like children's shows with my kids, and you saw people rapping in the children's shows, that was weird to me. And I was just like, "Wait, wait, hold on, like, we're rapping in kid shows now? Like, when did this happen? They were laughing about 50 Cent not too long ago." Right? So, I don't
Yeah.
it's just crazy, like, that whole transition, it was a very, like, old man moment for me. I was like, How did we get here?" It's like what Biggie said, "Never thought hip hop would take it this far." Like, that was how, like, it seemed like it was like a prophecy, right? Just hearing that lyric now in 2026 is like, wow, he was right.
Yeah, I remember how big 50 was, and it was like it's just every single place you went, and Get Rich, and what was the second album? I forget, but yeah, not the Massacre. Was that the second album? I forget his anyway.
I think so.
But yeah, he was huge then, and it was a big part of college. I remember that
Yeah,
every weekend for sure.
crazy movie.
So after college, I know that you pretty much dove right into ASCAP
Yes.
in the performing rights organization world. Tell us a little bit about that, maybe how you landed it and how long you were there and, what you learned and how that kind of, spilled over into your next thing after that, which
Got
we'll
it.
get into.
Well, I mean, for me, I was fortunate enough to know somebody over there, and when they say, "Oh, it's who you know," like I think it was someone that graduated before me that just sent in a referral and just put in the good word. And, I sent the resume in, and I got in there, which was really dope. And that's kind of like even to this day, so many years later, the experience at ASCAP is still the foundation of all the things I know today, like in sync, and it's helped me in production. When I hear somebody speak about that topic, I can tell right away if they're full of shit or not.
Right. You just know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where some people go, "Oh, yeah, managing my copyrights, and I wanna copyright my lyrics with ASCAP." I'm like, "You don't know, bro, what? Like, huh?" So there was a lot of that because, when you spend, a lot of time over there where, like my role there, like, I started out in the radio department in the beginning, and for those that are watching, just for those of you who might not know what ASCAP is, that's a performing rights organization where if you have music that's landing on television, most cable TV networks, streaming services like Netflix and I don't know, Amazon Music and all that, like you're getting a royalty for that. If your music is playing on in the background or if it's being sung on the screen, there's different rates for everything, for every network, for every usage, based on how long the music is playing. Repeats, all that, you get money for that. And then you also obviously get money for if it's playing on radio, most radio, national radio. Obviously, if it's like a very obscure radio station out in the middle of Bumblefuck, you're probably not going to get money or, get very little. So it's all like, based on that kind of scale. Like, obviously, you're going to know when you're getting paid. When you have like a big monster record on your hands, like, yeah, you're going to get more money. But that's common sense. A lot of people don't process that and still act like, why did I get paid money? This was on 3 stations in Kentucky and that's it. And it's like, no.
Well, I'm sure a lot of it has to do with viewership too, right? Like
Oh,
that
yeah,
has
yeah.
to reflect,
Uh,
why the money is
M
lower or
more
higher.
so yeah, more so on the streamers, than the cable networks and the TV networks, right? Because figure on the TV networks, they can only air 24 hours a day, whereas Netflix, it's unlimited, right? And it's just based on, whichever gets the most views is gonna win, like, whoever had music on Tiger King during COVID is gonna get a lot more
Just
money than
crushing. Yeah.
or, like, people that had music on the Diddy doc, a couple weeks back, like that, that music's probably gonna get more money than another show on Netflix that's not as popular. After the radio department, I went over to just basically was just on the phone helping and everyone that had a question about their account. ASCAP members would call in, and I would get the most from the guy you never heard of to Stevie Wonder's manager, where then they had to put me over to Stevie Wonder to speak to him for himself. I had to get some information from him or
I
whatever.
was gonna ask, like, I wonder how often you actually talk to the stars, or you're talking to representation, or
Both,
probably a
yeah,
little
I'm
bit of both,
talking
like
to
you said.
attorneys, I'm talking to publishing companies, indie, larger publishing companies, about anything and everything under the sun about their account. Hey, mostly it was, hey, why didn't I get paid? Or, hey, I moved, I need to get my checks sent over here. Like that's when I don't know. It's like a lot of like just kind of like a big ball of chaos thrown at you.
Especially back then before, online was probably as much of a thing where you can log in, do a
Yeah.
lot more,
I
so
mean,
it's probably way more hectic, I would assume.
when I was there, I mean, now I'm gonna sound really old because
When did you start there again? 2008, 2009?
2006 through 10,
Oh,
11.
you were there even before that, okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, and for anyone that might not know, it's like big corporations, they're very behind on technology. They were still getting faxes, right? They're
Oh, that's
coming in
amazing.
where you had to go to the fax machine. It is like I
Oh,
remember one
man.
time, shout to, Paul Schaefer from David Letterman. He needed, statements from the '70s. I had to go into the deep into the archives. I had to get microfilm and print out statements in microfilm, scan that shit, and email it to him.
Wow.
Like, crazy stuff like that, and,
Probably like dot matrix printing
yeah,
paper and stuff, like, oh, man.
I remember, one thing that, kinda got my wheels turning with sync too was, I was on the phone with, like, The Boondocks was a very popular show at the time, and this guy was asking about his songs that were in The Boondocks, and he was trying to figure out, like, "Oh, what am I getting paid for?" And, like, I just asked him point blank, I was like, "Yo, how'd you get your music on there?" I just straight out because he wasn't, world famous or anything like that, and, I was talking to him for a really good long time. He's like, "Honestly, man," he's like, "I just knew a guy who" I know this guy and he put my music in. And it's like, oh wow, okay. So it's not as complex as people think. It really is about relationships. I know that's the corny, generic thing people always say. Oh yeah, it's about who you know, it's relationships, but there is a degree to it that it's true.
I mean, a pretty big degree, really, especially in
But
music.
the extra sauce is that, yeah, it's about relationships, but, like, you're not gonna stumble on a relationship. You gotta be kind of aggressive to find those relationships, where to go, and kinda, like, not just involve yourself in every circle of friends under the sun because some relationships are no good. It's about the quality relationship over the number of relationships. One relationship can get you further in the industry more than 100 of just shit relationships where no one's responding, no one's genuinely caring. So that's something that, you always gotta be aware of. It's not the number of, but it's always quality over quantity. I feel like in music, just creatively and in relationships, I feel like that's the common thread with everything, and authenticity.
So after ASCAP, I know that you also were helping with a company called iStandard, or at least simultaneously. I think you're doing it both at the same time, and that was led by Jay Hatch, and
Sir, big
R.I.P.
yeah,
Jay Hatch, and you were his partner in a company. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I know that you worked for him when he had his company iStandard, which
yes,
was an amazing company where he had a lot of producer. It was really a producer showcase company where he'd have events in the city and then all over the country, really. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? How you linked up with him? And,
sure,
what you did with them.
sure. So, going from ASCAP to iStandard, you're right, it was simultaneous. Shout to ASCAP because they paid me so poorly. I had to get a side hustle, and I found Jay Hatch, and I went to one of the events early on. Went back when they only did events in New York, and maybe they were doing them in Philly.
So you
Where
just randomly kinda saw that that was happening and you just went to one?
yeah, I was an attendee. I think this was back during my internship. I just went to one of the events, and I thought it was really fucking dope. Didn't really link up with them at that point, but, like, I remembered them, and I was like, "Yo, I gotta get involved with this." So, I hit them up, and, I think, I was working with some producers that were in the show, and, they did so I saw the whole thing from a producer perspective of, like, being into the show, and for people listening or watching, and the way the show works is, like 10 to 12 producers will go up on the stage, play like 5 beats, 1 minute each. There were judges from the industry, like A&Rs and established, like, platinum producers and what have you, and, they keep score, and, like, whoever won at the end would, like, win a prize, but it really wasn't about the prize at the end, it was about just
It's always about networking.
it was a
It was a
true
networking event, yes,
networking
like
event, and Jay Hatch was the motor behind, most of it, if not I don't wanna give him credit for all of it, but most of it was 'cause of, Jay Hatch, a lot of his connects, I still have a lot of really good connects to this day because of Hatch. Hatch was never like a gatekeeper, he would always introduce people, "Yo, this is
yeah.
such and such," whoever it is, like, "Hey, yo, this is Rockwilder," or whatever, like, Hatch introduced me to Rockwilder, right? I still, can talk to this day. Very dope dude, like,
Oh, really
a lot
dope,
of
yeah.
people shout out to people like Jimi Kendrix, he did a lot of the Murder Inc. stuff, he's produced for Jay-Z, like
I know he was close with, like, Focus and,
yeah,
just
Focus, like,
such
shout
big
out
names, just the
yeah,
list goes
yeah,
on.
shout out
Yeah.
to Focus. Like, I wouldn't know any of these guys who, like, I grew up listening to, still listen to their production, and that's just, like, the tip of the iceberg of, like, people that I wouldn't have known because of Jay Hatch. So, like, huge shout to him. He really was like the Kevin Bacon of production, where 6 Degrees, like, it's gonna go back to Jay Hatch. All roads led back to him. He definitely was like the foundation of a lot of things that's happened. And the special part of what he was very inspirational to people, where he made producers and writers and artists on the come up realize that it's very obtainable. Where a lot of people think like, oh, yeah, I'm so far from like where I want to be. I'm so far from a Grammy. I'm so far from a plaque. Where he kind of puts it all in the focus, and it's like no pun intended. Shout the focus. He puts it all in the focus where it's like no, you're really not that far from. You're one relationship away from making this happen, or you're one track away. So, he can articulate it much better than I. Like I'm not a
Yeah,
motivational
such a good public speaker.
I'm not a public speaker. I'm not a motivational speaker like he was. Like, I feel like that was his specialty. Like, yes, he was a music guy. Yes, he could, executive produce stuff. And quick story, he raps too. A lot of people didn't know that. Like
I know he was in a group with, what's his name? The guy he has a studio downstate. What was his boy? It was, what's his
Drawzilla.
name? Yeah, yep, yep.
Drozilla, yeah, I don't know if it was a group or, like, they worked together. I still to this day, I don't know exactly their.
Thinking is because I read his book, his,
Oh, gotcha,
like
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I think in the book he talked about that, and I think I messaged Draw like, I followed Draws online, I was chatting with him, I think we were talking about him
You
real
know what,
quick.
honestly, I have his book, it just, like, it's a weird thing, like a complex, like, I just can't. I don't I kind of part of me doesn't wanna read it.
I'm sure it's
I
difficult,
can't
yeah.
like, articulate it clearly, but, like, it's like, because like, I worked with that guy for, like, a combined damn near 18, 19, 20 years, and it's like, to me, I'm like, I don't need to read the book because I was there, you know? Where it's like I worked with that dude so much, with iStandard, and then there was a gap where we didn't work together, and then just with Made by Us, that we co-founded with my guy PJ. Shout to PJ Exec. But yeah, definitely, the music industry lost someone really important with Jay Hatch. Like jokingly, I told friends of mine, I said I would trade Hatch for Diddy any day.
Oh, man. And it's funny, I remember, when he passed, Primo put a picture of him up on his Instagram, I was like,
Right.
"That's dope, super dope, look for that."
The whole
And,
music algorithm, yo.
a lot of people did, yeah, but even just to see, people at the very top, and like he just knew everybody,
Yeah.
and it really, I was really hoping that he was gonna really start going in with podcasts too, because and he did. He had a couple episodes, I think he was deep that he did at Sound Collective, and I think that was gonna be his next frontier. Honestly, I really think he was gonna get just more and more into the video game podcast, and yeah, real sad, real
You know,
great guy.
he
I'm
would
glad I met him and knew him as much as I did, which wasn't that much, but I can't, you knew him for years, and that was
honestly, he would have been your first episode.
I would have loved to have
He
him
would have
on.
been your first episode. So
It probably still would have been you, man, but, I
Got
mean,
it.
he would have been on the list, man. I would have, I would have hit him up for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. For
Well,
sure.
RIP to Hatch, man,
Yeah, man.
great dude.
Shout out to Hatch.
And, with that being said too, let's go right into Made by Us.
Yes.
So, for those who don't know, Rhythm J co-founded a music licensing company with Jay Hatch and then PJ, another one of the co-founders. And leading up to that, I know you had so many placements in TV and film and sync, and it was just I know you said it just was kind of the time, and you guys got together and were
Yeah.
like, "Well, let's do this." We have a lot of connections. We all have our own strengths. So talk us through how that started and where we're at now with Made by Us.
For sure. So Hatch was like the event guy, the commercial music guy, the major label guy. PJ was the A&R guy. He worked at a slew of major labels, in the A&R department. And then I was the sync guy, right? Because prior to the forming Made by Us, I had music on, to this day, I don't know the exact numbers back in the time, but to date, I have like music on over 1,000 shows. So I already had like some sort of a resume going leading up to founding Made by Us, just signing random deals, not random, but like, strategic deals with other libraries and other companies where as an individual creator, like that was at the time that was the way to go. Right. Where it's like, okay, I want to get stuff in shows. I landed on, figuring out, okay, yeah, you can have individual relationships, but you can also have relationships with these larger libraries, because when you think of it from like a perspective of a TV network, are you going to go to a library with 100,000 tracks, or are you going to go to like an individual person that might have a catalog of, I don't know, 800 tracks, right? You're going to go to where the 500,000 tracks are at, right? There are 100,000 tracks. So, I got my stuff in a bunch of libraries, understanding what deals I was getting into. Like I was super aware of it, but and knowing like how shitty some of these deals were. Right. So some of these sync deals where they were taking all the publisher share, in some cases, part of the writer share, like half the writer share or 75% or whatever, 25%. Like it's all fucked up. It's all highway robbery. Right. So, but that was the standard, right? Or that was a narrative that was given to
Now,
people.
real quick, not to cut you off too. So, is that appealing to people in a way that are you getting just better placements when you're with those big companies? Because it seems like there's so much music to choose from, it would almost be harder. But that's where I kind of don't know.
Right. Well, because a lot of these libraries are so massive, the networks don't hesitate to, want to do deals with them. And therefore, it's a law of averages. I mean, one of the things that it's a big math equation when you get to it, right? Like I'm trying to answer your question directly, but
No, no, I get it. Yeah,
I'm not trying to avoid it. I mean, I'm trying to like make sense of it, where it's okay that there's a catalog of that many tracks, because if your shit is dope, it's gonna cut through the bullshit, right? Because the biggest flaw with a lot of these libraries is, yeah, you got 100,000 tracks, but you probably have 95,000 garbage ass music,
right.
trash, or, trash ass music. So if you're in that top 10%, top 20%, like the TV networks are gonna find you. because of the search engines, because it's not just them going through a folder, right? Like we have all this technology now where it's like a search engine like Google where you just go on whatever website and you type in the keywords you want, it pops up. I mean, it's not new technology. I mean, this technology has been around for, 10, 15, 20, damn near 20 years now. But, and then the quality of the music is always the ultimate separator, right? So, there's that part of it. And I just try to put my best foot forward where, all the kids that were, laughing at 50 Cent back in, back in the Oneonta days were trying to make hip hop, you know, many years later, they had to catch up where, people like you and I were in the thick of it, where it was like we were true to the sound and, understanding that like we were guests in the genre and we respected that shit. We wiped our feet at the door when we're trying to make this kind of music. And like, I know you understand it as a producer also, where it's like, there's a lot of people that fuck up what hip hop, not even just hip hop, but is what this music shit's supposed to be, where they just disrespect the, I don't know, like they lean on technology too heavily. It's kind of like it's like with
I
not
think a lot of it, people are just a lot of the times, I think they're just not fans first, and that's a huge separator. I think and that's not maybe not always the case, but I know with us, that's definitely the case, and that helps everything, really.
and I feel like a lot in the early days that helped because I really leaned heavily on authenticity. Where a lot of people were like, "Oh, let me look up Google MOP and see what they sound like because this TV show." It's like I don't need to Google, Annie up. Like I already know that shit, like the back of my hand. I don't need to do research on Biggie or whatever it is, or like, and I keep going back to boom bap, but like it's whatever genre, like within the general umbrella of hip hop. But
Yep.
'cause that's where I started, right? And then I started working with live musicians and, playing in rock bands, like, I understood, like, even though I never played guitar, I understood guitar players, how they operate, like, where there's so many talented musicians out there too, where like I incorporated a lot of live instruments. But that's how I got a lot of my placements is just like really trying to put quality forward. And when you think of the math, right? And this is one of the big reasons, just want to go back to this real quick,
Yeah, sure.
why I shifted to sync, where when you do the math of sync in general, you take one episode of one show, it's probably 50 to 80 tracks being used if it's like a 1 hour long show, right? Because they're not using the
Wow, really that many? Yeah,
yeah, 'cause you're not using the whole track. It's like 20
right.
seconds here, 30 seconds here, right? So it could be any of that. Just like let's say like 50 to 100 tracks, ballpark, maybe less, maybe more, depending on the
Mhm.
length of the show. And depending on the genre of the show, reality or scripted. Uh, and that's one episode. Season's got like 10 episodes. This thing has like a 5 season run. Now you're talking about 50 episodes. That's one show. That TV network has, I don't know, 80 shows, right? You multiply that by 100 networks, right? So you do the math and you're talking about, and I haven't even talked about Instagram, right? I haven't even talked about Reels. Like, let's say, T-Mobile, like, maybe us, we did something for T-Mobile, like a digital spot like that went up on Facebook, like where it's like a digital ad where it didn't necessarily go to air like on TV. Maybe it will one day. There's that part of it. There's all the ads, all the commercials, all the digital spots. So like the math is in your favor to get a placement in the sync world. I'm surprised people didn't catch on until I feel like it's gotten really popular on Instagram in recent, like probably the last, I feel like since COVID, like sync got on the everyday producer's radar where it was always like, oh, beats and get how to get beats to artists, how to land on
I
albums.
mean, that was me instead, it's me forever. Like, I didn't have that mindset. I didn't really know anything about I mean, I knew that you were in that world a lot, but, like, I didn't really know how to really get my foot in the door outside of bugging you. But, yeah, I think a lot of people just, you being at ASCAP, that was such a, propellant to put you right into that world,
Yeah.
so
Oh, yeah, and the crazy part is, like, I was able to see people's royalties in ASCAP and without naming names because that would probably be foul to do. But, if you saw, like, your favorite, like, the people that we're fans of, right? Your favorite sample-based producers that you put on Mount Rushmore, they unfortunately were not making as much money as, like, the writers to, like, themes and just the background music to your favorite TV shows. Like, the TV show people were making more than the legends, which blew my mind, but I was like, "Well, that kinda makes sense because if you're sampling, your percentage of the song is gonna be, you know, 10, 15%, if that, whereas, you're getting 100% of your TV track or, where the quality now too, like, I can't I don't even like using the term TV track because it used to be an insult, like, even when you walked into an iStandard show and a judge heard a beat and he wanted to, like, kinda clown you without saying your shit is trash. He would say, "Oh, that would sound good on TV." Right? Ha ha ha, punchline. That shit's not a punchline anymore because I feel like it shifted where there's a lot of shit on TV that's better than some of the garbage that's coming out now. So what are we really talking about?
It's an
Right?
interesting shift, yeah.
Yeah, it is. So, like, the quality has matched, if not surpassed in a lot of cases with, film, TV ads, especially, like, ads, like, we got the Super Bowl coming up, I'm not rooting for anybody, but, I bet you some of the music on those commercials are gonna sound better than a lot of these new artists like Little This and Little That. I can tell you that much, right? So,
And like you said, is that you think that's due to people just not really understanding the business side of that and how lucrative it was until people started realizing and then it just kind of went like this? Is that you think is that really why you think it happened?
I just think there's a lot of influencers that are trying to sell a dream to a lot of people, right? Because the same people, not the same people, but I want to say 10, 15 years ago on the websites, it was, oh, how to get placements better with artists. Now it's how to get music in sync. You know, pay $50 a month to join my online community, to join my seminar. And yet these are the same people that aren't posting any placements on their feed. So it's like, what are we really doing, right? And with Made by Us, like our social media presence is purposely not that loud. We're not posting every day. We're just posting, some highlight placements here and there of things we're doing quietly and just kind of like just doing the work and getting the actual placements for people for our roster because our main client base is not the masses. We could care less about the masses. Like we sign a small handful of people, yourself included, right? People that we feel are talented, that are dope, that are true to what they do. Authenticity is our main thing. It's one of the reasons we're called Made by Us. It's just like that and that the fact that my name is not gonna be on a song that I didn't write or touch, which is really foul too, because you have people that will have won ASCAP awards off of slapping their name on a bunch of TV tracks, right? This is some shit. This is shit gonna get me in trouble. There's a there's people that won ASCAP and BMI awards that that have their name on like 100,000 tracks who didn't write any of that shit. There's people in there that's like, really? You wrote 100,000 songs in your lifetime? No, you fucking didn't. All right, like there's a lot of bullshit that's going on where some people have like a crazy run where maybe their publishing company they own made all this money and their name was on all the tracks because of their contract they set up, and it's like, come on, man, like that's not. So it's made by us. It's not made by us and the owner of the company. That's why I take pride in my name's not on something that I didn't touch.
Right.
And that I felt that was very important when I founded this with PJ and Hash. I know I'm jumping everywhere, but I feel like it's an important point to get out there because the people that are watching this going, how do I get my music in sync? I'm trying to show you things to watch the fuck out for. One is that. One is if you have to pay money to get into something, you probably don't want to do that. Uh, I would say it's always quality over quantity for me, and there is no more mentality of let me just make a TV track real quick. There's not any of that. Like
Doesn't exist anymore.
gotta
And
you gotta treat it with care, like you're making it for an artist or you're putting it out yourself on a project. There is no turning back now. The technology has gotten too crazy to the point where you really can't have a garbage track anymore with everything that's given to us on a silver platter in the form of technology.
And I can speak to that too, because I listen to people that, we have Slack that we use obviously for Made by Us, and people, people post all types of stuff in there, and the quality is amazing. I mean, like I'm seeing who's getting placements, and a lot of the same people that are just really talented, and quality is just amazing. And the turnaround time for some of these people is just it's like immediate, and it's something that I'm not nearly as good at as other people, especially jumping genres and different styles. So to see it, it really is impressive. And I see the placements people get and it's all super well deserved. So I can definitely attest to that for sure. The quality is there without a doubt. And I know you guys uphold the standard. It's always very, repeated a lot. Like, hey, make sure mixes are top quality. You got to make sure it's like the best of the best. We can't have anything subpar at all. And I respect that. It has to be like that.
Yeah, PJ, the co-founder, I call him two things. I call him Simon Cowell from American Idol, deservingly so, and Matumbo because of the way he'll swat shit back when it's not from far. Like he'll Matumbo shit all the time, and I love it. Right, and
Yeah, you gotta have that quality control. It makes perfect sense.
yeah, absolutely. And people watching, if they are trying to get into sync, I always recommend to try and create songs Whereas a lot of people like to do instrumentals, and that's cool, but you're doubling the chances of a placement because you don't know if a client's looking for something with vocals or without. So why not just have both in the form of a song where you send the vocal version and you have the instrumental with you? Then you can't lose because you have both versions. So you have to like get rid of the excuses, right? You have to like put yourself in the shoes of a hater and think of what bullshit excuse a hater will have to say no to your track. Oh, he got no vocals on it. Oh, yes, I do. Oh, the mix ain't good. Oh, yes, it is. Mix is mastered. It's good to go. Right? Just any bullshit excuse that they might have. Oh, there's no variation. Oh, it's just very repetitive. No, it's not. Right? Just thinking that way and just having that mentality. Like you can't just right. Not that you do this or a lot of people we know do this, but there are a lot of drag and drop producers now. They'll just drag in a loop that they find and drag
Right.
in another drum loop, and it's like, what are we doing? Like, I don't know. It's
No, I hear you. It's
happening.
it's it's so easy. I mean, it's just so
Yeah,
easy now to produce. It really is.
yeah,
I mean, look at we can go down, we can talk about that forever. But yeah, it's just it's very easy. There's so many loops of everything you can imagine. There's break beats everywhere. There's obviously melodic loops everywhere. There's sound effects everywhere. There's pre-recorded DJ scratches that are like full length. I mean, it really is easy. So, I totally get what you're saying. And to that note too, I mean, how is AI really affecting the industry, and how is it affecting how you approach business? What are you seeing when you talk to companies? And we're right in the thick of it now with AI obviously taking off exponentially. So what are you seeing?
well, as of right now, as of the recording of this, podcast, I almost said January, February 2026, uh, from what I can see, the majority, if not all well, no, let's say the majority of clients are saying, "We don't want any AI generated music. We don't want partially AI generated music or AI assisted music." Right? Obviously, there's stuff like Isotope where, yeah, you can use a AI plugin, right? That because that just gives you a starting point that, like, you still gotta make it sound good, right?
Yeah, I use Isotope. I love
Yeah,
Isotope plugins. Yeah.
exactly, yeah, like, what's it called? Ozone? And
Ozone. Yeah. Yep.
yeah, so, like, I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about, like, generative AI. If you use get a loop from, like, a AI system and put it in a track, like, you're not gonna wanna send that in for sync. I've even read up on, like, recently, I think it was SACEM, the French, PRO. They're working with I forgot what company it was, but there's now, like, tracking, software that can pick up when AI stuff is used in a song.
See, that's very interesting
That's
because it
only gonna
seems like
get
that's
better.
wow, that's yeah, that's pretty interesting. Because even when I've like toyed around with like AI sites, like let me see if I can like find some like AI samples. And as much as I've tried, nothing has even hit in a way where I even
Yeah.
spend much time at all. So that's very interesting. There's technology that's going to be able to detect that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's only gonna get better, right? Obviously, the initial AI stuff is gonna go out ahead of the detection, but that's gonna, I think, catch up a lot quicker than people anticipate.
Right.
So people are like, "Oh, no one's gonna know. No one's gonna notice." It's like, yeah, it's gonna bite you in the ass. Give it a year, or less. It's probably gonna catch up. But so that kind of redefines the brand name of Made by Us because it's more of an indication of like made by people. Now we did, and you were part of this. Made by Us. We had a big conversation with our roster. I'm sure every publisher that can do this or have the ability to, uh, basically gave the roster an option to opt in or opt out of AI, meaning not that we're creating music with AI, but now do we want to take, people's music and then submit it to AI companies, not for like saying, hey, they're just going to snatch it up and keep the music. No, obviously not. But like there are plugin companies that need large catalogs of music to, do whatever, what is it, like machine learning and just whatever
Create algorithms,
create
really.
algorithms
Yeah.
and just learn from the songs for them to create their mastering software or their like imagine if like not that this was a real life thing that happened with us, but like let's say Isotope was coming out with the next Ozone and they needed music to learn from it, right? Like, we're working with companies that are willing to play ball and compensate the creators for using the music to learn. Not like I don't want to name any other big AI companies, but the obvious bigger ones where they've been accused of scraping the internet
And
illegally.
yeah, it has to be happening.
Like
Like there's no way it's not. Yeah. It's
honestly, I'm
just,
sure
yeah.
your shit's been scraped, my
Oh
shit's
yeah.
been scraped.
You have to expect it at this point. That's how
Yeah,
I look at it. Like
like
you
if
just
our
have to expect it. If it's out there, it's getting scraped.
yeah, if
Like
your shit's on Spotify or YouTube or Instagram, it probably got scraped at one point, right? And that's unavoidable. So obviously, we're not trying to work with any of those kinds of companies, but the ones that are like, hey, we need music and we want to pay you for the music, not to keep, not to sell outright, but just to license it the same way. TV network would want to do. Where and that's the beauty of licensing for me is that if you get a track on an artist album, that's great. You get to celebrate, but you retire that beat for good, right? Like you probably can't reuse that beat on another artist's album. An artist wouldn't want the same beat unless it's like a remix. But that's a whole nother story. But with sync, like it can show up on. There's been shows that I have music on where it's multiple episodes of the same show. It's different shows, multiple episodes, all the same track. Uh, and it's all perfectly legal because it's in perpetuity, like within the show. Like basically, I can't pull the song from the show. That would kind of be impossible anyway.
And as long as they don't have exclusive rights, you could still do essentially whatever you want with the beat.
Yeah, most licenses, as far as like music users, like the end users, understand. Like, okay, like it can't be exclusive. I mean, there are buyout situations where they say, "Hey, we want to buy this outright," but when that happens, the price goes up.
Right.
Right, like we did some stuff with, some companies where, it's buyouts, but, all that's, like, ahead of, sending the music. They can't just be like, "Oh, by the way, we're keeping this." Like, obviously, all the paperwork gotta be right and all that, but, yeah, there's so many ways you can make money in sync and, just from the royalties, upfront payments, custom work buyouts. I recently did a theme for, Iman Shumpert has a podcast, called, Shump Street, and I did the theme for that.
Jump
So
Street.
yeah, yeah. So the Shump Street
Oh,
podcast,
that's dope. That's
yeah,
dope.
go
Yeah.
check that out. So I did a custom theme for that. It was really dope because it features the guy Ray Clay who announced Michael Jordan like during the '90s run. Like, and now number 23. Like that dude is on the theme that I did announcing Iman Shumpert.
Amazing.
Which
Did
is
you know that was gonna happen or no?
Yes, yes, during the whole making of it, shout to my guy, Neil, who helped me put all that together. He told me what's happening. He's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna try and get Ray Clay on the track. This is what we want for the track." And you get a brief. For those of you that might not know who's watching, a brief is this is not what you get from the commercial side, right? Because the record label A&Rs just go, or used to. I don't know if there's any A&Rs left, but like they used to just be like, "Hey, just send me hits." That would be the extent of the
Just as
description.
easy as that. Just the hits.
"Oh, send me that fire." Right? And it's like, "All right, cool." But with sync, the people that actually listen to the music, they're giving you an exact description of what they want, right? Of just like, "Hey, I want it like in this genre, around this tempo, this kinda energy." We don't
And
want
I've seen those ops with Made by Us. They're
Yeah.
very specific. Sometimes it's not as specific, but sometimes they're very specific. Oh yeah.
Yeah, shout out to all the music supervisors in the world, like the Guild of Music Supervisors. Made by Us, we're a friend of the Guild as well. Like this is our membership with them. Like, there's a lot of music supervisors who like they get on top of their shit. They really do. And in my music career, a music supervisor I feel like has been on top of their shit more than the classic record label A&R. As far as like communicating, intaking, taking music, going through music, actually listening to music, just because the demand is so much higher too, with it. So I don't know. Shout out to the music supervisor doesn't get enough love, or shout out. So, just want to shout them out because, everyone talks about the A&R, the record label A&R, and, they're the ones that look cool and, oh, he must know these big artists, at look at him, look at his picture on the Grammy red carpet. Okay, great. But like the supervisors, like the music supervisors, they're contributing to culture, I feel like just as much. And folks listening, when we're talking about ops, we're not talking about the ops, we're talking about opportunities
Word docs that we get sent to show what companies are looking for.
and how much money you'll get paid if you land it. Right. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I love what you guys are doing with Made by Us. And it's funny, I've kind of had a turnaround on like how my outlook on AI. And for a little bit there, I was thinking, geez, like Made by Us, it's gonna be tough because if all these companies can spend pennies on the dollar to just generate AI music, it's almost like it's gotta be very hard to compete with that. But the more I tinker with some of these sites, I think a lot of it is just not that great. I mean, especially if you're a music head, if you're a music, if you're a music supervisor,
Mhm.
I think it's still amazing what some of the software can do. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Yep.
But I don't know. I still think there really is always going to be a need for the musician. I don't think it's going to go away. I think there's going to be some world where they both kind of coexist,
Yes.
and it's just kind of a matter of maybe what you're looking for. Do you want a certain touch? I'm sure there's a lot of companies that, might opt into just going the easy route and
Yeah.
maybe picking some AI stuff. But even as it learns more, I still think there's going to be a touch it just can't have without humans. I really do. And even for as close as it can get. So I think if you guys stay the course, you guys will be hopefully doing good and better as the time goes on. So
Shout out to my guys. I gotta shout them out just from the MadeByUs squad. Smart Boy Beats and Hayden THC. We've had endless AI conversations
oh, I bet. Yeah.
behind the scenes, and another thing we've landed on it's kind of like T-Pain used autotune for his whole career, still uses autotune to this day. But people forget T-Pain can sing without autotune. He never fucking needed autotune.
Right.
Right? So I feel like in the AI world, and there's a songwriting team that myself and PJ met with where they're getting really heavy into AI, but they were really dope songwriters before
It
they
still takes the
got
ear. It
into
still takes the final
got
the
into
final
AI.
call.
So
Yeah, you still have to have the mind for it no matter what.
yeah, if you're a trash producer, like using AI is not gonna make you a better producer or a better songwriter or a better artist. So you still gotta be nice at what you do before using the tools you know, to enhance your already established skill set. Like, you still gotta be dope.
And speaking of like ozone, because I use ozone, I love ozone,
Yeah.
and like neutron and what comes with the pack with isotope. And
Yeah.
when we do a round two, we'll get a little bit more into the specifics on maybe DAW usage, plugins, stuff like that. But
Sure.
what I've noticed with something like ozone, it's really kind of almost like a teaching tool, and
Yeah.
it is really amazing. It works wonders. It really is a one click, and it gets you almost all the way there. Sometimes all the way there once you have a lot of plugins already there.
It's that
But what
commercial. One click and it's done. What's that
yeah.
fucking
I
commercial?
mean, it really is that good of a product, but it really because it's like a rack and you see what it did with EQ, what it did with the
Yeah.
imaging, what it did. So then when you see that, then you're learning, and then maybe you're just kind of doing that without ozone here and there, especially on
Yeah.
individual tracks. So it really can be kind of a tool. So if you're just kind of dropping it and hitting a button, at least
Yeah.
in when we're talking about ozone, I mean, you gotta know you gotta know what you want, you gotta know what sounds good, you gotta know how it sounds in the whip after you
Yeah.
bounce it out, so it will
Yeah.
get you there. There will always be the need for the human touch, like, always.
And
I really believe that.
yeah, and I also feel like with any of those AI tools where, there's presets or whatever preset you're using on any plugin, like those presets are never going to perfectly mold whatever sound you're working with, like your before sound, and then you apply the preset, and then you have an after sound. It's never going to work out perfectly for you. There's going to be like to me, it's always starting point. Like that should be the key term in your head. It's always a starting point. Where like there's a lot of times where you put up a preset and it just sounds like S.
Right.
It's not applicable to what you're
Yeah.
working on. So a lot of times, like just finding a good starting point and then really just adjusting the taste. I mean, to me, that's the best abbreviated version of mixing advice I can give. Your ears are going to be your most important tool. I learned that from Ken Lewis. Shout out to Ken Lewis,
Oh,
probably
he's the man. Yeah,
one of the
I
the
love
GOAT
watching him
mixers. Shout,
online.
shout out to Mixing Night.
We gotta dive into a lot of people that next episode too, because he's an interesting guy. I sat in on some of his live streams before on YouTube.
He's dope. Yeah, no one can fuck with him on the mixing side. He's
And his
ridiculous.
credits are as big as they get. I mean,
Yeah,
it's amazing.
yeah, because also, not saying Ken does this or any mixer does this, but when you see a mixer go, "Oh, this is how I mix," and they pull up like a plugin that's like, "Oh, I've never seen that plugin before." It's like, are they trying to sell that plugin? Are they trying to, or like, are they sponsored by that plugin? And people make their own plugins. More power to them. Show the plugin and like rock out with it, do your thing. But like, because I take mixing advice with a grain of salt, where it's like, well, okay, does that mean you have to buy that plugin? No, right? So like, you don't have
It's
to buy.
very easy to fall in that trap. It's
Yeah.
very, very
Oh, I need to
easy.
get that plugin from a mix sound. It's like, no, you don't. You just get like the type of. You probably already have they have like a crazy EQ. Just use your default EQ. Your default EQ that you have with whatever DAW you're using. It's probably just as good as that one. It's just it's got crazy visuals going on the. People fall for the visual stuff on plugins too. But one thing I just want to mention that's why I like the advice from Ken of just your ears are your most important tool. I feel like that's a commandment to go by more than anything, because I mean, this all comes down to taste. Like two mixers can have the exact same, like they can both be goat mixers, but each goat mixer is going to mix the record differently.
It's so interesting how that can happen because a lot of the times a lot of mixing is there is a huge art to it. But a lot of it is a science too. You know, there are some things that like you kind of just have to do to get things sounding quote
Yeah.
unquote right. But to your point, yeah, I mean, there's alternate mixes on things and they're wildly different, but still both dope. I use nothing but stock plugins forever up until probably like 7 or 8 years ago. I just really didn't own any like third-party plugs at all. Then I kinda went down the rabbit hole and bought like, a bunch of Waves plugs, a bunch of
Yeah,
these. I didn't go too crazy, but I did buy quite a bit. But the big thing I would tell people too is it's really understanding just exactly what each thing does. Like, you really have to understand what a compressor is doing, what it's doing to the sound,
yeah,
what it does to a kick drum, what it does to a snare, what it does to vocals. And then once you really understand what the attack does, what the release does, then you'll start realizing like, "Oh, I like this because I make this type of music and it works well on these types of vocals." So that's when you know like, "Okay, this company might have a plugin that works for my taste,
yeah.
for what I'm doing." And once you start understanding just the basics of what certain plugins do, that will really start kind of shifting you into a lane where okay, I don't need this. I have this whole bundle. I have this. Would this do anything? Stop, ask a question.
Yeah.
At that point, probably not.
For
And
the
then
people
save some money.
for the people listening, since you didn't mention a compressor and all we said was, "Oh, we gotta know what a compressor does." The best description I've had on a compressor ever is this, is when you put the compressor on, think of it as there's a little guy standing next to the volume knob, and if something is too loud within wherever you put the compressor on, he's turning it down a little, and if something's too soft, he's turning it up a little. That to me is like explaining a compressor to a 5-year-old. That's really what a compressor does. And then, the ratio is how much that little guy standing next to the volume knob turns it up and down when something's too loud or too soft. The attack is how quick he does it versus, how much slower he does it. Release is how long does it take for him to bring it back to where it was, right? Like, just like understanding it in like the most like childish way is sometimes
And honestly, like
the
for
best
it's
way.
funny because for as much as I even knew that over the years, it took me a long time to really understand how to hear compression. How to
Mm,
hear like when I hear a kick drum and I'm like, that needs to be compressed. The transient is far too sharp. I need to like sculpt the transient more.
mhm.
It took me a while to kind of understand that. Where I would hear people say like, "Oh, those drums need to be compressed," and I'm like, I don't know if
Or
I know
the
what that means, but then over time, I'm like, "Ooh, I totally understand what it means." I could hear when something's too compressed, or if it
yeah,
needs it, especially on a whole mix, I'll be like, that needs to be compressed." Where for a while, I didn't know how to identify that. I knew something
yeah.
was wrong, but that's another thing, like, just
Or
really being able to hear it and know it.
or these kicks aren't knocking hard enough, that shit don't need to be compressed, right? Like,
Right, both ways, yeah, exactly. Yep,
I
so
I find usually that's the case of, like, people compress the shit out of their transients, and then they wonder, like, "Why is my shit not hitting?"
right, so it definitely goes both ways, and again, we could next for round 2, I think we're gonna go a little bit deeper into that because I have a whole list of questions that I'd love to throw at you rapid fire, favorite EQ, favorite this, but, and yeah, before we go, man, I just wanted to is there anything, planned for the future that you got that maybe you wanna let people in on in terms of, maybe where Made by Us is going? You got any personal projects in the works?
Oh, man.
Anything like that?
I mean, just you guys can just follow us on Instagram at madebyus.music. You guys can follow me directly at rhythmj. I mean, it's just like the daily grind right now is just looking at working with our roster, getting as much placements for the Made by Us roster as possible in, ads, TV, film. I just had some really interesting calls today that, a lot of times it's weird like being a co-founder of a company because I can't say this is coming soon, that's coming soon because it's like you don't want
Well,
to
right, sure.
right? It's like a lot of stuff is like bound like legally, but like when stuff happens, it happens. I could talk about things we have done. I mean, for the roster, I mean, lots of brand names, right? Like like Walmart, Sprite. We had a huge Sprite ad. T-Mobile, I think I mentioned before. Marriott, Tic Tac. List goes on with that. I mean, tons of shows, All American. You probably have the list right next to you too. The Bel Air, we had a bunch of
I
couple.
remember that, yep.
Rhythm and Flow, Grits, Girls Raised in the South on All Black. We had Serious Business with Anthony Edwards. Had something on Amazon. We had something on there. We've had stuff on Netflix, Hulu, Apple Plus. List goes on. So we're just looking to continue that always sending music every day out to people actually asking for the music, not like blindly just sending music to people. Like to me, that's the difference between the major label space and and the sync space is like, we're sending music to people that want it. They're asking for it, and it's not like they're getting their inbox flooded. They kind of want all this music because they want to go through all the music, for whatever they're working on because there's a usage case for it. But yeah, it's just that daily grind, man. I mean, nothing huge to announce. Just continuing to do what we're doing and continuing to grow, and just being out here, just looking to continue to be keeping things authentic, keeping things, one thing I want to mention too is Made by Us, we probably have the most diverse roster in the sync space where, unfortunately, sync in general, it's a very old white male dominated space. For Made by Us, with ownership, staff, roster, it's 50% or more BIPOC, and we didn't plan that. It kind of just it's just we signed people, myself, PJ, and Jay Hatch, rest in peace, who we thought were talented, and this was the end result. We have people from all over the country on the roster, and I'll put my roster up against anybody's because there's no fluff on the roster, and we're gonna keep going. And
And it's really amazing too, the variety of just musicianship.
yes,
Like, there's people that do all types of genres, play like, it really is amazing to see that, like, just seeing this person like, "Hey, I need drums," and somebody will play drums, and this person will
yeah,
whatever this instrument. It's like, it really is interesting to see that, and we spoke on this before, how it's hard for my mind to get there because 'cause I've always, like, to really, like, have that super collaborative mindset because 'cause I've always been, like, kind of a loner in that. Just seeing it happen, it really is amazing, like, I wish I was a little bit more, involved in that way, but it is very, so many people with so many different skills, and just to see it, it's amazing.
yeah. You can see firsthand how we make it accessible for everybody, just to have direct access to each other and people who want to collab or just ask. Usually they end up collabing. So that's something that I feel like a lot of publishers aren't doing. See, I'm giving away too much sauce right now.
'Cause I don't it's funny because I don't know too much about how other companies do it, so I only see it from
Yeah.
the Made by Us side, and to me,
Well,
it's amazing that there aren't a lot of other
it's
places that, like, or at least in your experience, that don't do it like this.
it's very siloed. It's very right? Like any publisher, when they sign somebody, they're, I'm talking about Sync now, major labels might be different. But I can tell you in Sync, people just sign, individuals and they're in their own little silos and there's no communication mechanism amongst, the roster because the roster's too big. Like doing what we do on Made by Us, imagine us having a roster of 2,000 people, right? It wouldn't make
It
sense.
would never work that way. Yeah, it couldn't.
So,
Like, just inherently, it couldn't work.
right.
Well, it could with how much people know each other and collaborate like that. Like, yeah, it would be
So
much more difficult.
So the quality over quantity mindset is very effective and it works, because then we can pull off something like that where we don't mind, like we're not gatekeeping, like we're saying, yo, you from this roster, from the roster that plays guitar, you should get with this producer or you get with this, really dope singer and make a fucking banger and like encouraging that collaboration. I feel like that's super important, especially if, there's a lot of people that have never met before that have knocked out stuff out the park that are incredible. But yeah, man, we're just kind of continuing to grow. Like even I'm still, I never stop learning. Like I'm learning something new every week. Every day, damn near. Just there's that desire to just learn more, absorb more information. Read an article, see what's going on. In different places in music, and just continue to elevate because nothing makes me happier than when like someone on our roster gets a check or gets paid. Like I don't even get mad, like, "Damn, I wish I got that money." It's more just like, "Yes, my guy's been working his ass off and he got paid today." Right? Like that makes me happy
Yeah.
because a lot of times there's so many people that have done so much work in music and they don't get a fucking dollar for it because the passion is there and it's so strong. And it's like people have so much music just sitting on their hard drives, and it's like, yeah, you're getting like, people are getting like Spotify dollars here and there, but like I wanna see people get compensated for their work. And then there's always like that stuff that like you feel like, oh, I went left, on this track. Oh, I don't want to send this to an artist because it doesn't quite fit their sound. And then they're like kind of, like the stuff that's the most interesting and unique where people like feel like, oh, I'm going too left or it's too out there, spaced out, too experimental. A lot of that works for sync. So people that sound really different and feel like, oh, I don't know where I fit in, like sync could be a good place for you.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate you being my first guest. I'm always learning a lot when I speak to you. Today, I learned quite a bit. Appreciate chopping it up with you. Do you have anything else you want to plug before we wrap it up?
Nah, man, just your podcast and that it blows up and becomes, incredible and that, I'll be back again
Well,
in
we're gonna be doing round 2. We will be doing round 2.
round 2 and yeah, I'm excited to see where this podcast goes, man. So best of luck to you and your whole endeavor with all this and, your background is really dope. I know we were talking about that off camera prior to this, but yo,
Yeah, it's
it's
like
really
I have spent time to, just put up, albums and got my TV back here with the video games in the
I love
back
yeah,
and
I love the setup, man. It's really dope. So,
appreciate it.
yeah, man, I really like what you're doing, and I feel like you can fill a gap in the music space with podcasts, man. So I'm looking forward to seeing the other episodes and the other interviews that are probably better than mine, because you're probably gonna be dealing with a bunch of crazier personalities than me. So I'm
Well, I
looking.
thought it was dope. We hit on a lot of business stuff, a lot of
Yes,
industry stuff, and you were the guy to do it. And I really want to dive into the production mixing side too next time. That's really what I
yes,
want to hone in on. But like we had to get
yeah,
all
man.
the
Of
history out first because I definitely
course,
want to have you back. So we'll do that soon. And
appreciate you,
yeah,
man.
man, thanks again, and good looks on stopping by the first episode of Audicratic Audio. We are out. Peace.